selling job. Thank you, girls. Well done. Right, lads and lasses, here we go. This takes a long time. I'll try and cut it as much as possible. But I always do a mortal memory. I kind of look at facts and figures and do a wee bit of research about myself. And I've come up with some amazing facts on Harvey Bunds. There is quite a list, so I've short on that as well. Just to let you know that the first poem he wrote at 15 years old, and 1,760 pieces of literature followed. Fans of Harvey Bunds include Bob Dylan, Abraham Lincoln, Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson actually, his Thriller was based on Tam Chapman. There you go. Statues, non-religious, only beaten by Queen Victoria, Christopher Columbus. Over 60 statues erected at Harvey Bunds all over the world. Auld Lang Syne is the third most popular song in the world, after Happy Birthday and He's a Jolly Good Fellow. In 2009, he was crowned the greatest Scot ever by STV viewers, actually beating William Wallace, Robert the Bruce, and Sandra Clement. The last 7 years, he was an excise man in Dumfries, Stuart, and he actually died with £1 in his name. He fathered 12 children to 4 women over 11 years. Good guy. So how did this remarkable night come about? 9 friends celebrated 5 years after the death of Rabbie in July 1801, eating haggis, reciting poems, telling stories of Rabbie, and this what became the Immortal memory, and subsequent celebrations on the 25th before or after on Rabbie. Right, so the Immortal memory. So, lads and lasses, perhaps more importantly, why should other nations and other people celebrate the birth of a Scottish poet? And why are these celebrations so unique? The English have Shakespeare, the Irish have Joyce, the Americans have Longfellow, the Italians have Dante, the Germans have both. Every one of them internationally known and respected figure, but to none of them is paid the homage that is paid to Bunds, even in their own country, let alone abroad. There is no institution of a Shakespeare supper, a Joyce junket, Longfellow lunch, Dante dinner, and not even a goat guzzle. There is no international acclaim of any of these writers, great though they may be. Yet Bunds is universally acclaimed. Why should all of this be? When the Bunds supper in Dunedin is finishing, it's still underway in Perth in Western Australia. And in the meantime, they're sitting down in Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. And an hour or two later, they're seated in Calcutta. And this chain of friendship follows the setting sun westward through Asia, the Middle East, Africa, across the Mediterranean to Europe, and then over the Atlantic and across these great continents of North and South America, over the Western Seaboard and beyond. And so on, right around the world, right around the clock. On the 25th of January each year, and many days before and after, there is not an hour in the day or night when a Bunds supper is not taking place somewhere on this earth. Robert Bunds was born in Alloway, Ayrshire, on the 25th of January 1759, and died in Dumfries on the 21st of July 1796. We celebrate his birth, we do not mark his death, because Bunds' work is all about life and living. It celebrates the common man, but in that short 37 years, he left a huge impact on the world. His family were farmers, making a living on 70 acres, but when he was 6, his father, William Bundes, and some neighbours established a village school and hired a teacher, a Mr. Murdoch, for the families. Robert and his brother Gilbert attended the school, but the teacher left in 1768, leaving the boy's father to continue their education. But there is evidence from later in writing that Bunds read widely. He had a knowledge of Latin. He was a very literate farm boy, although he had to work like a Trojan to help his father on the farm, something which weakened his health and shortened his life. In 1780, at the age of 21, Robert and his brother Gilbert, with other young lads of Tarbolton, founded the Tarbolton bachelor's club, setting an example followed by many Burns clubs round the world. It was founded as a diversion to relieve the wearied man worn down by the necessary labours of life. Robert was elected as first president, and in the first meeting dropped the rules for membership, one of which required that every man proper for a member of the society must have a frank, honest, open heart, above anything dirty or mean, and must be a professed lover of one or more of the female sex. No haughty self, conceited person who looks upon himself as a superior to the rest of the club, and especially no mean-spirited worldly mortal whose only will is to heap up money shall upon any pretence will ever be admitted. Not a bad motto for any club. His father died in 1784 and his brother Gilbert, the poet, rented a farm, but this venture, like many others, was unsuccessful. In 1785, his first child, a girl, was born to his mother's servant girl, Betty Peyton. The same year, he met Jean Armour. He had an intimate affair with Jean Armour, for which he was censored by the Kirk and had to spend some time in the cutty stool in front of the church congregation, named as a fornicator. As a result of his famine misfortune and the attempts by Jean's father to overthrow his common-in-law marriage with Jean, he decided to emigrate, taking a job as an overseer on a Jamaican plantation. But in order to raise money for the passage, he published a volume of poems, which he had been composing for some years, the famous Kilmarnock edition of 1786. And his volume of poetry was unexpectedly successful, so that instead of sailing to the West Indies, he went to Edinburgh. And during that winter, he was the chief celebrity of the season, lionised by the nobility. Another enlarged edition of his poems was published in 1787, and the money helped him to aid his brother's farm in Ellisland. His fame as a poet had reconciled the Armours to the connection, and having now married Jean, he brought her to Ellisland and once more tried farming. This lasted only 3 years. He published several more poetry editions and put words to many Scots tunes in the Scots Musical Museum and in George Thomson's select collection of original Scottish airs. Many of these tunes would be lost were it not for his efforts. In spite of the fact that he was always broke, he refused to accept any payment for his work, preferring to regard it as a patriotic service, and it was, for which we are still grateful. His production still enriched the lives of Scots and lovers of poetry everywhere. He gave up on the Ellison farm in 1792, and he was appointed as an exciseman in Dumfries, which helped with his money problems. But by then he was thoroughly discouraged. He saw his work as mere drudgery, and his tendency to take his relaxation in debauchery weakened his constitution. Burns tried another venture, joining the army, becoming a private in the Royal Dumfries Volunteers for the last 1.5 years of his life. He seemed very practical about it, and saying in a short verse, "O thy juice should I repine, and I'll be an ill foreboder. I'm 23 and 5 feet 9, I'll go and be a soldier." But by doing so, Burns entered the Scottish military tradition, only a few decades after the Jacobite rebellions. It was a busy time for regiment building due to the invasion threat from France. We can see in his work that Burns was initially seduced by the strains of liberty coming out of the French Revolution, but then switched sides and composed a series of much more patriotic verses, much more suitable for a pillar of the community like an exerciseman. From January to March 1796, there was famine in Dumfries, and by July, Rabbie was in his last illness. On the 21st of July, all but destitute and in debt, Burns died. He was buried with full military honours on the 25th of July. His son Maxwell was born of Jean Armour the same day. During his life, Rabbie was a humorist, a storyteller, a lover, a socialist, a nationalist, a philosopher. He could be romantic, charming, funny, sarcastic, and had a devastating war. His life, his work, was a series of contradictions, a personal response to turmoil and change in Scotland. The Industrial Revolution was changing the country, the population was increasing, leaving land for cities and emigrating. Scotland was becoming part of Britain after the Jacobite rebellions. And the French Revolution was shaking the politics of Europe. Given all this stress, it is perhaps surprising that Burns himself was full of contradictions. At times, he was a lover, others a lecturer. He was a romantic, he was a realist, he was a nationalist, but also an internationalist. At times he was radical, and at others reactionary. Were Burns alive today, the media would have a great time taking him to task over these contradictions. But I like to think he'd cope, turning up at the BBC, debating with Jeremy Paxson, other journalists, and if penned a political verse, his barbs today also likely to be aimed at the First Minister and the Prime Minister. Through all of his work, Burns disarms us, with his honesty, with his self-knowledge. He expressed beautifully in the first epistle of John Lefrec. I winna blaw about myself, as I like my thoughts to tell. But friends and folk that wish me well, they sometimes ruse me. They moan on, and money still, as far abuse me. There are we fought, they whiles lay to me. I like the lassies, God forgive me. For money's a plaque, they wheedle frae me at dance. When I think of Burns, I think of the man's ability to paint beautiful pictures with words, with rich expressive use of language, colloquial and classical. We can show great wisdom for such a young man, much more now than your average rock star. And although Burns often wrote in Lowland Scots, a dialect of modern English, which is sometimes difficult for non-Scots to follow, he was a poet of the English language, writing at the start when English has taken over the whole world. That is another reason for his enduring success over 2 centuries. His dislike for hypocrisy is well known and beautifully penned in the variety of poems and letter, none better than Holy Willie's prayer. O Lord, thou kens thy seal I bear, and drinkers drink and swearers swear, and singing here and dancing there, with great and small, I keep it by thy fear. His sometimes lecherous nature shows up in many of his letters and in sources like the Merry Muses. But in my view, it is outweighed by his romantic side. This is so evident in many of his letters. His reworking of old songs and his own songs and poems. One poem which sums it up, Over I on Paramus Hill, that he wrote for Jean, not long after they were married. He wrote it, as he put it, as a compliment to Mrs. Burns. Then come sweet muse inspire my lay, for all thee lang summer's day. I couldn't sing, I couldn't say how much, how dear I love thee. I see thee dancing o'er the green, thy waist sae gimp, thy limbs sae clean, thy tempting lips, thy roguish sheen, by heaven and earth I love thee. But his romantic shades into realism in the poem To a Moose. The romantic, I'm truly sorry, man's dominion has ruined nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion that makes thee startle at me. Thine on earthbound companion and fellow mortal becomes realism. Thy wee bit who say to and ruin, the silly was and winds are strewing, and they now a big Newton and foggish green, and bleak December's winning soon, bass snell and keen. He finishes with profound reflection. Still thou art blessed compared with me, the present only touches thee, but a backward cast thee, O prospects dear, and forward all I canna see, I guess and fear. This could have stemmed from many things that continually went wrong in Burns' short life. Some commentators see it as a comment about industrialisation or change. But whatever it meant, it was profound and speaks to us today. The internationalist Burns produced the world-renowned statement, harbinger of 19th century socialism, and a man's a man for all that. Then let us pray that come it may and come it will for all that sense of war o'er the earth shall barely grieve for all that. For all that and all that is coming yet for all that. That man to man, the world o'er, shall brothers be for all that. But Burns also penned the most nationalist of views. sometimes proud nationalism, other times rather bitter. He saw the 1707 Union of Parliaments as a money classy sellout to the English. He mourned the loss of the Scottish identity. Farewell even to a Scottish name, so famed in ancient history. He looked bitterly into the past. What force or guile could not subdue through many warlike ages? It's wrought now by a coward foe for hiring traitor wages. The English steel we could disdain, secure in valour station, but English gold has been our bane, such a pass of rogues in the nations. And only Shakespeare's Henry V can compare with the emotion conveyed in a speech to troops before battle that Burns conjured up in Scots we hate, a song about the Battle of Bannockburn. Wha will be traitor knave, wan can fill a coward's grave, wha say base as be a slave, let him turn and flee. Wha for Scotland's king, God's freedom sword, will strongly draw, freemen stand and freemen fall, let him fall away. As a storyteller poet Burns his few peers, is there a better short ghost story than Tam O'Shanter? He painted word pictures, listened to these words describing a cosy seat in a warm bar and a friendly storm in the night of the Cotter's Saturday night. A market night, Tam got planted unco right fast by Ingle, blazing finely with streaming swats that drank divinely at his elbow. Suitor Johnny, his ancient trusty drouthy crony, Tam loved him like a brother. They had been fou for weeks again. Burns is one of the reasons why I'm proud to be a Scot. With all the mass contradictions that goes into a very complex identity. We all normally keep all hidden beneath sober dour exteriors, pretending to be respectable bank managers or ship engineers, but we all like to think we have a wee bit of the poet's soul inside us, a hidden romantic side, and Burns helped us respect that and express it as well, and let it out from time to night. Every new year, the world starts off the year by rejoicing in the words rescued and reworked by Burns. There is no better memorial to man than the words Auld Lang Syne. We'll tack a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. I'm very proud to give you this toast, the proudest toast for any Scot to propose. It's a toast which we should drink with joy and with pride, with reverence and irreverence in equal measure. I ask you all, Scot or not, to fill your glasses, raise them high as I give you the immortal memory of Robert Burns. Robert Burns. Thank you.